In this video, we'll look at how to write equations to linear functions given 2 points. In the PowerPoint, we looked at if we already knew the constant rate of change, we only had to find vertical intercept. And in this case, we have 2 points and no constant rate of change. And since it's asking us to write a linear function, we can assume that these 2 points all lie on a line, and so therefore there's a constant rate of change. So whenever we need to write a linear function, remember that that linear function needs the constant rate of change and vertical intercept. So in this case, we don't have either of these because we don't have 0 something for each one of these points, and of course the constant rate of change is not given. So the first thing we want to do is find that constant rate of change. And if we recall, it is the change in output divided by the change in input. And the change is the difference, so that means the difference in the outputs divided by the difference in the inputs. So next we want to make that calculation. So we know that the constant rate of change is going to be 2 minus 7, these are my outputs, 2 and 7, divided by my corresponding inputs, 6 minus a negative 4. So that's going to be negative 5 over 10, which is simplified to negative 1/2. Okay, now that we have the constant rate of change, we need to next find the vertical intercept. And again, the vertical intercept isn't given, so we need to make sure that we find this, and we can use either one of these 2 ordered pairs because the function is linear, and so that means that both of these points lie on that line. We're going to go through the process. I'm going to show you both just in case you decide that you want to use one point over the other one just to satisfy. So what we need is the vertical intercept. So what we need is 0 something. And what we're given is, I'm going to use the first point that's given to us, 6, 2 first. So we want to go find 0 something from 6, 2. So the first thing we need to do is find the change in input. And so our change in input is going from 6 to 0, so 0 minus 6, or you could also say, which is negative 6 units, or you could have said you're going back 6 units, which also means that you're, or left 6 units, so that's negative 6 units. After you find the change in x, you need to find the change in the output, and we'll just use y in this case. And so now we have to use the change in input times the rate of change, which we now know to be negative 1/2, which is equal to 3. And this would be 3 units up, because we're talking about the output, and that's up and down. So our new output, or in this case it would be the something, is going to go from, we're going to go 3 spaces up from 2, and that gives us 5. So we now know the vertical intercept is 0, 5. And if we wanted to do it with the other ordered pair, it's the same process. So we would go 0 something again, and we want to go from negative 4, 7 from this point. And so again, all you're doing is what we've been doing in the tables. So we want the change in the input, and we can call it x. And so this time we're going to go from negative 4 to 0. So in other words, we're going to go right 4 units. Or you could also say that you went 0 minus a negative 4, which in both cases that means we have a 4. We went 4 units. And now we want the change in y. And so we use the change in input, so 4 times the rate of change, which is negative 1/2, and that gives us a change of -2, or that means we went down 2 units. and we're going down to units from 7, so negative 2 plus 7 is going to give us that same 5 that we found in the other order pair 6, 2. Now that we know the vertical intercept, so our vertical intercept is 0, 5. And again, you don't have to find both of them. I was just verifying that it doesn't matter which point you use. Now we can write the linear function. And so our linear function is f of x because it's a function. And we don't have any defined variables, so we can just use f of x equals, where we're going to essentially that 0, 5, and we're going to actually decrease it by a rate of 1/2 each time. Or you could also write it several different ways. F of x equals 5 minus 1/2 x. Or we could also write it f of x equals negative 1/2 x plus 5. Any of those ways are acceptable.